Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Please just give me 1 second to double check to make sure everything is, in fact, working properly, because at this point, we all know that whenever I don't check, that's when issues come around. And fortunately, everything does seem like it is working. Now, I hope everybody had a good weekend. I know I did not stream. That is because, as I mentioned earlier, I did have real-world obligations, so that kind of took me away. I had something going on Friday evening, and then I had left home Saturday morning and didn't get back until yesterday evening, so I just didn't have any opportunity to stream, which is a shame because I do enjoy the streams, in particular the Sunday streams, but it is what it is. As I always say, real life comes first. That includes both you and me, but I am happy to get back into it, and we're going to continue with the tier list viewing because we have gotten pretty far in so far. We're already into the 2000s, which that's a pretty big milestone. On Thursday, we ended up watching Inuyasha, which was the anime from the year 2000. Today, we're going to be watching Hellsing from the year 2001. Now, this is another interesting one because I have not seen Hellsing, but I have seen Hellsing Ultimate, which is, from my understanding, an alternate version of this. I'm not exactly sure of the details. I didn't bother looking into it at all, but you know, it is what it is. So, as always, let's just I know the basic story of Hellsing, but as always, let's just read the summary blurb so we can, just for the sake of consistency. Oh, let me fix that. There we go. Hellsing, an organization specializing in dealing with supernatural threats, is called in to eliminate a vampire that is turning the villagers of Cheddar into ghouls. To put an end to this, the leader of the organization, Sir Integra Fairbook Wingates Hellsing, dispatches her most formidable asset, a powerful vampire known as Alucard. Hey, Alan, good to see you. Armed with only a single handgun, Alucard wreaks havoc on the monsters plaguing Cheddar. However, a young police officer, Saris Victoria, gets caught up in the chaos and becomes mortally wounded. As a result, taking pity on the girl, Alucard gives her a choice, die as a human or live on as a vampire. Saris accepts this offer and begins a new life as a member of Hellsing. Though it was her decision, Saris struggles with the fact that she is no longer human. Nevertheless, she must embrace being a creature of the night soon if she wants to survive on the front lines in the fight between humans and the supernatural. Thank you, Alan. It went okay. I mean, it wasn't really a break per se. I had real-world things going on, but it was nice enough. Can't complain. I did miss, honestly, I did miss doing the streams just because I wanted to get this done sooner rather than later. And also, I do really like the Sunday streams, so I was sad to miss that, but it couldn't exactly be avoided. So, I'm curious. I'm not sure how this is going to differ from Hellsing Ultimate, which I have seen, but I'm definitely curious nonetheless. Hellsing, another class. It's rework Hellsing. Yeah, okay. So I mean, his rework is better. Okay, I have seen Hellsing Ultimate on years ago. I watched it and I really enjoyed it. So I am curious to see how different the original is. So let me just quickly pop the recording so I can do that. Oh, excuse me. All right, let me just actually make sure things are working there. Okay, good. And I'm gonna skip the intro just because copyright has been an issue. Okay, quality looks like it's gonna be a little busted, but ooh, the animation's actually pretty good. Yeah, the animation so far is a lot smoother than a lot of the other shows we've been watching up to this point. Okay. Yeah, and I'll be honest, from watching Hellsing Ultimate, I don't remember the case here. Okay, blood animation action was ahead of its time. Yeah, I do remember it being very good in Hellsing Ultimate. But again, I've never seen the original Hellsing, so I don't know exactly how it stacks up. And I also don't remember from Hellsing Ultimate, but I don't remember how good the gun safety was there. But they have a lot of focus on the guns already, so either it'll give me a chance to have a funny rant, or they'll actually get it right. I do like the voice acting. That was another thing I do remember enjoying of Hellsing Ultimate. And this definitely seems to be another instance of the fan service actually serving a direct story purpose, which, as I always say, I don't care about fan service. I don't, like, it doesn't bother me at all, but I do appreciate when it actually has a real purpose, because vampires in popular media very commonly have a sexual element to them. And it's not uncommon for female vampires to be like the femme fatales. Oh, okay, so we got gun safety stuff. Hey, that's just our running thing so far. The porn music is pretty funny. Like I know it, like the over the top. Yeah, okay, yep. There's yep, trigger discipline. That's an issue. Okay, although I do find it funny. It's like his whole I get that the aesthetics are a big part of the whole stylistic thing they're going for, and it's not meant to be completely realistic. But again, I just do find it funny that he's part of this secretive organization designed to hunt these extremely powerful beings, and he's dressed in such a way that you like can't mistake him for anything else. But yeah, I'm not. That's not a point against it. It's just something I found funny. Okay, I will say that's pretty. As much as the gun safety is still bad, honestly, a lot of the things that went with the like the animations with the guns is pretty cool. Love how the shell casing just bounces all over, and with the smoke effects, it's cool. Again, I do find it funny that nobody seems to give a shit that this guy dressed like, you know, guy from the 1400s just happens to walk out of the building where everybody gets, where they're responding to a gunshot.
チェダーズ村にその牧師が赴任してきたのは6月12日。村民の失踪事件が始まったのがそれから1ヶ月後。地元警察が捜査を進め、おととい牧師を逮捕すべく教会に向かったが、全員死亡した。ロンドン警視庁は D11 部隊を出動させた。
I like the color so far, that each scene is kind of has its own color palette. That, you know, I'm not sure what the greater purpose of it is just yet, but it's interesting.
人間ではない。ただ餌として血を吸われた者は食人鬼グールという存在に脱する。レクチャーは済んでるでしょ。
しかし人間でないとまでは。
刑事部長のあなたの落ち度を追及するつもりも権利も私にはない。
落ち度かね。
チェダーズで何が起こっているのか、少なくともあなたなら、知識あるロンドン警視庁刑事部長であるあなたなら、どういう対処を取ることが賢明であるかというより、唯一それしかない対処があることを恋にか忘れ。
I will say, I do like the conversation happening where you can only see them in the reflection of the glass of tea. Or, Yeah, it's a nice little stylistic touch.
お仲間同士で何とかしようとしたところで、こ
Kind
う
of
いう
gives it a bit
展
of an
開になるのは
esoteric
自
type
明
of
であ
feel,
ったはず。
which
忘れたわけで
is
は
not
ない。
uncommon when dealing
法
with
律国境騎士団
shows that lean heavily into like
ヘルシング機関のことは。
supernatural and the occult.
日が暮れる。
さあインテグラルヘルシング卿。
すでに私の機関はチェダーズに到着している。
何個部隊で
Anderson is the priest, right?
Story.
If I'm remembering correctly. I'm not great with names, but I think, I mean, again, from Hellsing Ultimate, I remember all the main characters. Okay, yeah. He was a fun character. Okay. And it's definitely is doing a lot of playing around with color. I like that. And I will say I'm also probably going to have to deal with some fun copyright stuff with this later. If it's only monetization, I don't care. If it's visibility, that's going to be annoying. Yeah, Alucard and Anderson's fight has been referenced so much. Yeah, I definitely believe it. It's again, from seeing Hellsing Ultimate, there's a lot that would make it really stick in the cultural understanding. Yeah, let's see. Can't talk about this one, but Hellsing Ultimate had a great dub. There's something odd about British and German characters speaking Japanese. Yeah, I will say, again, I don't completely disagree with you. I've only seen Hellsing Ultimate, and I have not seen the dub. I watched it in the original Japanese. I do get what you're talking about, but yeah, I still generally prefer the original language if possible. But yeah.
こんな夜には血が飲みたくなるのさ
I'll be honest, I mean, I've seen Panty and Stocking. I don't remember the Hellsing reference, but I could have just been missing it. I mean, I could have just forgotten it. I mean...
口聞かないでジャック。もうすぐ増援が来る。
Oh yeah, I will say, I do think I actually... I mean, I know the character designs are largely the same in Hellsing Ultimate. It's just, you know, some of the stylistic... the art style has changed a little bit, but... yeah, I know. I do prefer Saras's Hellsing Ultimate artwork to the original Hellsing. I will say that much. Although I will say, I also do actually really like how they're kind of wearing a lot of their influences on their sleeve, because, you know, the show is literally called Hellsing, which is direct reference to Dracula, and a lot of Dracula-inspired media uses, you know, names like Hellsing, Alucard, which, you know, Castlevania used that and all that. Yeah. So again, it's really on the nose with how, it knows the type of story it's trying to tell. Although, of course, it does take it a little more over the top than most.
あるなんて私やだなこんなの私強くなるってジャックたちに子猫ちゃんって呼ばれないようにってもう二度と現場で泣いたりしないってあの時誓ったのに
I will say this monologue is a little bit on the nose. Although I also think that once again, there's a little bit of audio balancing issues with the music kind of overpowering the voiceover, which in this case, again, there are times when that can actually be used for artistic purposes. I don't think that was the case in this particular scene. So I just think, I don't know. So a couple issues with this scene in particular, but nothing that's killing my enjoyment, but something I do have to point out. But I also do like how quickly they establish. Well, that's not how quickly they establish it. They establish right up front. They're building on the initial exposition dump of, you know, the vampires turn people into ghouls, who then kind of lose their humanity and start attacking. Basically, they're their own undead entity. And this is a good way of showcasing just how fast they turn, which is actually an important thing as far as the world building goes, and also just as far as the actual plot goes. When it comes to, it's like, okay, somebody dies. How long do they have before they become a threat? Establishing that early on gives us the right framework for things moving forward. Speaking of Ultimate, how do I feel about Ascending? I honestly don't really remember it all too well, because it was like years and years ago that I saw it. So I honestly don't remember a whole lot of details about it. I just remember liking the visuals. the music, a lot of the action sequences were incredible, and I also found the Nazi femboy to be very funny.
やめてもういいみんな戻ってきて死んでるの死んでるのアンディ
Her stance is not
ユー
bad.
ジねえ私子猫ちゃんだよ分かんない
And I'm also not going to complain about her finger on the trigger, because this is actually a point where it makes sense for her to have her finger on the trigger. Even though, you know, it's still best practice to not have it until you're ready to shoot, she is pointing it at things she's going to shoot at, so fair enough. Yeah, I agree. Like, he was... Like he was not... He definitely didn't reach his full potential, but just as a almost like a comedic side character, I think he fit really well. So I don't know. I had fun. Anytime he was on screen, it was fun.
私もこれよりチェダーズに乗り込みます。今送り込んでいるハンターはこうした局面に最適ですので、どうか安心してお待
I
たせ
still think the background music is definitely overpowering the voiceover in ways that just don't feel right. I mean, the choice of background music is excellent, but again, audio balancing is just... That seems to have been an issue for a lot of anime.
私こんなことするために T11 に入ったんじゃない
I also do really like what they're doing with her character here, showing her just kind of getting closer and closer to her breaking point, where it's just more and more stressors are getting added on to her, and she's like having almost like a prolonged panic attack. Really like this music choice. Oh, and that's a cool choice for a shot. I mean, the distance is one element of it, which, again, it gives a kind of aesthetic flair to it, but also the fact that they decided to, again, kind of alter the perspective so that it's only at the very, the upper third of the screen, which is actually in use, where the other 2/3 are essentially blank. That's an interesting choice, which it gives it almost kind of like a puppet show feel to it. Like, again, like where they had like a little stage set up, and then it's like on the top of the stage is where the characters are actually doing their thing. So it's an interesting visual.
いい夜だな、不敬さ。血を吸いたくなるんだ、こういう夜は。
That was... She should have been able to hit him with a more accurate shot than that. Like, I get that she's kind of panicking right now, but at that range, and the fact that she had, like, time to actually line up her shot... I don't know. She shouldn't have winged him in the shoulder. She should have hit him center mass. Because they're not that far apart. See, look, they're only like, 30 feet apart. That's nothing. That's a cool visual as well. Seeing him, his eye behind the goggles. And I will say, it's something... I always found it interesting how much Japanese media likes to utilize, like, Judeo-Christian and occult symbolism, because it's not something that's super familiar to a Japanese audience, because, I grew up in America, where Christianity is the dominant religion, and then there's also a sizable minority of Jewish people here as well, so the, Abrahamic religions are very representative in my own experience. So I grew up seeing things like, the cross and counterculture elements here in the US also use the occult a lot. So you see pentagrams and the inverted cross, things like that pretty commonly. But it is interesting to see how much Japan likes that symbolism as well, when you consider the fact that, like, I think Christianity is less than 1% of the population over there, so it's not something that's like has a whole lot of cultural familiarity over there. So I always found that to be pretty cool. But, it regardless of how approachable essentially it is to the target audience, I still think the effect is pretty neat. It's, gives it a very eerie kind of feel to it, where especially the religious symbolism can be used in a positive or negative light, or I think in Hellsing it tends to be a little bit of a mixture of both, where it's not an all good sign and it's not an all bad sign. But yeah, I always like that type of aesthetic. Oh, I'm a little tired today. I'm not explaining myself amazingly well, but I'll do my best.
何してんのよ私。どこに逃げようっていうのよこんなとこ。
Yeah, I feel like if you're fighting undead, a cemetery is like the last place you want to be. Yeah, she should. Okay, at this point, she should never finger on the trigger.
救済を求める者に教会はいつでも門を開きます。
No, not a lack of sleep. I'm just day of work. So.
まだ若き乙女なのにこれほど生き生きとしているのに地獄の使者。
Because one thing is, I actually I work on my feet, so it's physical work. So usually after work, I'm pretty physically tired, and that kind of translates to my brain as well. Which some days are worse than others. Today was just not that busy of a day, but I'm still kind of tired. Probably because it's the first work day of the week.
されてかわいそう。
あなたが牧師様。
弱きを導く者、そうです。
私ミッションで。
Yeah, I will say character design overall
重要人物が。
is pretty peak.
でもあなたは普通の。
あなたは外であったグールのことを言っておられる。
グール。
吸血鬼の餌としてその血を吸われただの生ける屍として
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Alan.
吸血鬼の命じるままにいるだけの存在。
吸血鬼。
そうです。吸血鬼は人間すべてを同胞にするわけではない。例えば
I am also curious. Like, I don't remember the rules for vampires in Hellsing, but I'm wondering, like, is a bullet actually gonna, like, do the job and take out the vampire? Because based on Alucard's, I think it was Alucard was his name, based on the other vampire's reaction to having a gun pointed at him, it seems like you kind of need a special thing to do it, because, I mean, I imagine he's got special vampire killing bullets, but... Okay. Yeah, and this is very much like like kind of Dracula style visuals and symbolism and all that stuff. This is like common like old school horror, like monster movie iconography.
苦しいのだね。快楽を与えよう。
Like, I know they're kind of going for like the vampire being very seductive and kind of using his charms on the woman, but I will say that it's not selling that element super well. It's kind of really leaning on your familiarity with the common tropes and, again, the iconography of what these old school vampire stories would do. So if you didn't have that pre-existing familiarity with the subject, I don't think this scene would land as well. So, I think that is one mild failing of this scene.
パンク。
誰だお前。
俺の名はアーカード。特務機関ヘルシングの手先。ゴミ処理係だ。
ゴミだと？はっ、特務機関だって？正気かよ。
いや、ゴミ以下のウジ虫野郎だよ、お前はな。なんだよ、その格好は。カーニバルでも
I
そん
will
な
say
真剣な
I
格
do
好を
like
する
how the background colors change depending on who's in frame, where they've been going pretty heavy into the red color palettes for Alucard, so pretty much anytime he's in frame, you know, there's the red sky, or they make the background just red entirely, and then when they switch to this priest, it goes back to like the black and brown, like stone and the walls of the church.
やつはいない。
See, like it goes right
お
back to
前
him and
何や
it's
ってん
red.
だよ。牧師の格好などして恥ってものを知らない、それがお前のクズなとこだ。
死んでいいよお前。
隊長。
Okay, that's funny.
グールを増やし家来にする矮小な王。自分だけでは何もできないし、する気もない腰抜けめ。お前には地獄にだって居場所はない。殺せ。
Yeah. I mean, it's a little kind of, it's like edgy, silly, over the top. I get that that's what it's going for, but it's one of those things where, like, obviously he's not gonna be completely dead for good from that, but even knowing that, I don't know, I feel like if I was in his position, I probably would want to avoid something like that. Holy shit, that got loud. Sorry, I'm gonna probably have to turn this down a little bit. Because, holy shit. It is fucking loud from my end. And I imagine it's the same for you guys.
何？
まさか銃なんか撃っても無駄だ。
お前も
ただの銃ならな。
グールドも
Oh, wasn't that loud? Okay. Sweet.
人じゃない。
I'm trying to think. So he just fired 11 shots there.
お前のような
Okay, he is reloading. That was one thing I was curious about. So I don't know. It looks like he's probably got, you know, 10 to 12 round magazines. So okay. I will say a lot of shows, when they have characters just kind of just riddling people with bullets, they will kind of forget that reloading is actually a thing. But okay, nice to see that they actually
気づい
remembered
た
that.
時には嫌ってほど増えている。我慢ならないんだよ。吸血鬼の誇りがみじんもないもどきの分際で身の程知らずが。それとだ、俺が人間に仕えているには事情があってな。クズに聞かせる話じゃないが。
That, I will say also that felt a little on the nose, flashing the woman's face when he mentions, "Oh, I have reasons for serving humans," which, again, I mean, I get that there's no thing that has built to that just yet, but I still feel like that's the kind of thing they can establish, like, you know, establish the intrigue right now, and then actually showcase a little bit more of what he means later on. So I feel like that was a little unnecessary. I get that a lot of the design choices, the stylistic decisions as far as this show is, tend to be kind of over the top, but still, I feel like just because you're kind of making an over the top show doesn't necessarily mean that you need to make everything so obvious.
ランチェスター大聖堂の銀十字尺を溶かして鋳造した13ミリ爆裂鉄鋼弾だ。安
Explosive
心して
rounds.
永遠に煉獄へ行け。
I mean, again, it's over the top. That's
人間の手先のお前には撃てまい。 なあ、同じヴァンパイアじゃないか。人間なんて全ての点において俺たちより劣った存在だろう。なあ。
Yeah, once again, there's it seems to be it's a consistent issue of the music overpowering the voiceover and not done for like artistic reasons.
俺の闘争を助けるんだよ。一緒に俺たちなら。
不敬さ。
Actually, I will say that it seems to be less of an issue with Alucard's voiceover specifically, but I think that's because his voice is particularly low, so the bass kind of cuts through a little bit better than any of the other characters so far. Yeah, when the show doesn't let the viewers think and come up with their own hypotheses and conspiracies, I get hinting at stuff, but I hate when it's laid on thick. Yeah, so one of my general pet peeves when it comes to writing is I think a lot of stuff works better when it's left up to the audience to figure out, or at least the pieces are there. And then, again, it's like then it's up to the viewer to kind of put things together for themselves. So, I don't know, because a lot of times it feels very artificial when they just come out and say the thing that they're trying to let the audience know about. Okay, that is not how you no. He's gonna shoot and then the recoil is gonna go all crazy. And that's not even gonna stabilize it very well. Okay, I don't know. But wait, actually, no, he said it has explosive rounds in it. It's not gonna go through her, it's gonna hit her and fucking explode. No. Like this would work if he didn't say that these are explosive rounds. That's fucking hilarious. Also, I feel like at that range, he could also just hit the guy in the head without having to do that whole, oh, I'm going to shoot through you and hit him thing.
No,
俺は強制しない。選択はお前さんがすることだ。答えろ。
はい。
Okay, that visual was really good though. I like the animation, the way they sold the shot, even without making it all that bloody. Like, it's completely unnecessary, as I explained earlier, but you know, overall the visuals of that scene were, I think, done very well. But still, like, there are other issues. I will say, again, that I get what they're going for here. The idea that she made a self-sacrifice, that she's then going to have an opportunity to live on as a vampire, as the very thing that kind of put her in this position in the first place. She's living on as the thing that traumatized her, but also at the same time. So like thematically, I actually really like what it's doing, but the way they set this scene up, everything about it was completely unnecessary because, again, at that range, there's no reason Alucard couldn't have just blown the guy's head off easily. Shooting through her was completely unnecessary, so it just feels like that completely undercuts what they're going for. Although, technically, Alan, she's shot through the lung, not through the heart. And same issue as before. I actually really like the music, but it does kind of have some issues with audio balancing. Okay, and then, yeah, I like the symbolism of that as well. So yeah, I will say it's doing a lot of stuff that I really like, and I don't really remember if Hellsing Ultimate did the same kind of thing because it's been a long time since I've seen it. But again, it's doing a lot of stuff that I do like, but there definitely are a number of issues that are holding it back. Like, ugh. Like a lot of it feels like something that was created by an above average talented like 14-year-old boy, where again there's a lot of competence that goes into it, but then there's just you can tell the kind of edginess, over the top nature of it, the just the overall vibe of what it's going for sometimes kind of dominates everything else. Again, because like that, like again, the symbolism and the thematic stuff that it was doing in the previous scene, really like that. Again, I absolutely love the idea of she makes the decision to essentially sacrifice her life for the sake of killing this vampire, and then she is essentially chooses to live on as a vampire herself, kind of having to internalize all of that going on. But again, just the scene leading up to that was so full of issues that it completely undercuts what it was going for, which is a real shame. And I will say also the lack of music in this scene in particular is a very good choice.
ミッション終了。ターゲットは完全活動停止。機能限定解除終了。
たった一人のターゲットに時間をかけすぎだ。レスキューを呼ぶわ。
And I do like how we see her again, and now that we see her, her eyes are red, which is a very nice touch and nice and subtle as well. Even though it's pretty easy to spot, it's it's just the right level of subtle that I think works really well for what it's doing here. And of course, with the overall red, the picture, the overall red color palette that goes on, especially when we see it from Alucard's perspective, we see the fact that her eye is now the same color as his eye. Again, it's good visual storytelling.
はヘルシング機関に移籍させてほしい。
勝手なことをしないで。
この父兄が自分で選んだはず。
ヘルシング機関は撤収する。
いい夜だ。
Okay, so yeah, I'll be honest, I don't remember entirely how this compares to Hellsing Ultimate, but yeah, overall it's doing a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff I actually really like. It does have a number of issues kind of holding it back in my opinion, but yeah, overall this is a pretty good start to the show. I'm definitely enjoying it. I will say I do remember enjoying Ultimate a little bit more than this, but at the same time, yeah, there's a lot to like about this. I can understand why it did so well on release. Although I will say, I want to see, is there... Yeah, no, I can't increase the quality at all, unfortunately. So yeah, I will say that this recording is a little low res, but nothing I can really do about that.
遅い。重症設置まで7秒
And
半。
again, they're kind of doing what they were doing earlier, which is every scene kind of has a dominant color. In this case, it happens to be this kind of puke green, yellow type of color, which it gives off kind of an eerie kind of feeling, which I think also it's added to the fact that they don't have any music yet in this episode, kind of meant to facilitate more of an eerie. I'm trying to find the word. I have a word in just like right on the tip of my tongue. I can't really think of what it is. I don't know why I'm completely blanking on it, but kind of a tone of like we're not quite sure what's going on just yet because it's, you know, drip feeding us little bits of information, but and I do think the yellowish green tone is meant to kind of highlight that. And then, of course, the one character wearing blood red. Ambiguity? Maybe? I don't think that's the word I was thinking of, but that's closer to anything I was coming up with on the top of my head.
それはお前には必要ない。そういう存在にお前はなっていると聞いている。
I love the little stumbles.
Kim.
Great way to just, you know, quickly showcase that, you know, not quite human. It's pretty on the nose, but, you know, it works for what it is.
なかなかのスタイルをしている。そうは思わないが、キム。
変よあの人。
そんなことより車でパクストンたちが待っている。頼むよ。今夜我慢して付き合ってくれ。
Yeah, and the music is a great choice as well. Well, it's not even really music, it's more of a sound effect at that point, although I think there was an instrument that went into that, but, you know, kind of gives the, like, almost like the groans that you might hear in, like, a sewer or something like that. Works really well, especially considering, you know, we're 3.5 minutes in and no music aside from the OP, which is noteworthy.
一般人に接近。
神の皆により不浄なる生けし屍に永久なる鉄槌を打たん。エイム腕。
I will also say, again, I know that it's not meant to be very realistic, but if you're trying to shoot like that, you don't exactly want to have one eye closed. That's a common misconception, but I'm not going to complain about it too much. Honestly, this show does guns better than most that I've seen so far, so I really can't complain too hard, but yeah, it's still not correct. That's also not the right way to do that. I'm not gonna dock points off it or anything because this is just a commonality with anime, but you don't hold the trigger in the crook of your finger like that. You want to have the trigger on the pad of your finger because that gives you the most control.
Yaris, ute.
Ooh, I like that. That's nice and creepy. Also, is she using iron sights? Why?
Mission 終了。現在現場処理中です。了解。
That being said, I understand that the entire point was that she was still not prepared, still hesitant, not really like ready to actually embrace her role as essentially a professional killer.
初陣はしくじる者の方が長生きするというが。
And also, it's just not an uncommon trope in media, and also in real life, honestly, for somebody in their first real taste of like an actual consequential battle, essentially, even though this isn't a battle, but same idea, you know, falter before you really steel up and are prepared for it. Yeah, again, common thing that happens in both fiction and real life.
お前さんはそうでなくても嫌というほど長生きするんだったな。
らしいです。
I will also say, I do think she looks a lot younger in Hellsing than in Hellsing Ultimate, which is an interesting choice. Which I kind of get what they're going for. I do think I still prefer her Hellsing Ultimate design, but in the original Hellsing, I think the fact that her appearance is so youthful actually does a lot to really emphasize the innocent factor that we have of her, where she's... I mean, innocence is probably the wrong word, but like the timidity, the fact that she's not really had that exposure to this dark world just yet, and she's still unsure, still scared, that kind of thing. And yeah, the fact that she is so young, looking appearance wise, that she looks as young as she does, actually does a lot to really push that idea forward even more. And of course, I don't think it's a coincidence that they're using that youthful appearance in connection to the fact that they called her Little Kitty, which, again, she's most likely... Again, I'm kind of speculating based on what they showed us, but it seems like they're kind of going for the idea that she was almost like the little sister of the police squad. So, you know, even beyond her appearance and her personality, she's just kind of generally treated as the... you know, the younger one that everyone wants to protect that's not really battle-hardened. And now they finally started introducing some music, which is an interesting to have this upbeat song be the first music we're really given 5 minutes into the episode. That's fucking crazy. I thought they were going to do something with that, but they just didn't.
Amen.
Amen.
I also do like how she has a different
Victoria.
uniform, like with a slightly different color palette than the rest of the squad. Even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in context, it does make her stand out, and just from a visual perspective of, you know, as a viewer watching this show, I do like it when the main characters visually stand out in more ways than one, because she's got her blonde hair, which is in contrast to everyone else so far. She's got the red eyes, and she's got the light blue uniform.
Hi.
お前さん、前に所属していた D11 でもお客さん扱いされてた。
Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying earlier, where she was, again, you know, the little
現
sister
場
of
で
the
はお
group.
前さんを特別扱いはしない。だが、
特別扱いなんてしないでください。現場だけじゃなく。
Oh, and I like the little fangs as
そうしたいところ
well.
なんだが、厄介なんだ、お前さんは。
Amusingly, the fact that she has her fangs now just kind of amplifies the adorable factor of her, which, again, I think is not an accident. There's definitely symbolic reasons they're making her out to not be super intimidating on a visual level, which I can only imagine is going to fuel the character growth later on in the show.
厄介って。
Because, I mean, it's pretty obvious that a big portion of what this story is going for is the idea of her kind of growing into her role as this creature of the night who hunts other creatures of the night. I mean, it's not exactly a stretch to say that. It's kind of obvious from what they're doing, but I think everything they're doing so far is kind of setting off on that early starting point of, you know, cute, innocent, adorable, before she kind of goes into hardened and scary.
ビクトリア。あなたの日常のお世話はこちらでいたします。
Okay, now I see what they're doing. I'm not sure I completely agree with them having that music earlier on. If they're going to, since they only showed it for a few seconds before not really doing anything with it, but now they're coming back to it and starting to play around with the distortion effects. I think they could have just done it all at once and not had the break for that other scene, but, you know, it's not that big a deal. And of course, they're also leaning on the juxtaposition between happy music and making it creepy, which, you know, just amplifies the creepy factor.
こちらです。
Although I do feel like they're kind of jumping to and from the music a little in a way that feels kind of jarring, but not in like an actual useful way.
申し遅れましたが、私はウォルター。インテグラ様からあなたをお世話するように預かりました。
私の厄介なことって。
厄介なこと？まあ大したことじゃありません。銀食器はお使いいただけないとか。
あ、
Okay.
私銀のフォークとか使ったことないから全然平気。
Okay, and it does also seem like they're leaning a lot onto the. I mean, I already mentioned they kind of wear their influences on their sleeve, but they're also leaning into a lot of the traditional ideas of what a vampire is. I know a lot of modern media has kind of taken the idea of vampires and kind of played around with what that actually means, but they're kind of going back to the, baseline stuff of, driving a stake, destroying their heart is a way to kind of kill them. They can't touch silver. They probably don't have reflections in the mirror. All these like original things. Although interestingly, the mirror thing is almost kind of used a little bit incorrectly, because the reason they were always depicted as not having reflections is because mirrors used to be partially made out of silver. So it was the silver that was actually preventing the reflections, not the actual mirror itself. So not really a big deal, but I don't know. Makes me feel smart for knowing that.
っていうか、
昼間の外出もお控えなされた方がよろしいです。
I will say also, the little kind of goofy mannerisms they're giving her don't actually seem to really fit so far. It might be because they introduced her in such a serious setting and just it kept serious. There was no opportunities for lightheartedness, so that we didn't really get to establish the full breadth of her character yet. But seeing her do these little, the anime girl mannerisms, they don't seem to fit. Honestly, it doesn't feel right. I do think they're kind of doing what I was talking about earlier. We're trying to really lean into the, innocent and cute aesthetic early on, so that it can, be juxtaposed with how she's going to turn up later. But I don't think it's quite landing with her mannerisms. I think if they kept up with the timid and scared and hesitant, that would have been a better use of their time.
日当たり最高。おこんなベッドで眠るの子供の時夢だった。
Like this, I think is a lot more believable.
これ何です？
Like they're not really going too over the top with her mannerisms here, but it fits.
棺桶じゃないよこれ。
Yeah, again, I will kind of, we're out there. No. Something kings. Yes, I see soul in the top right. I don't know, something's hard. Oh. Mind, my body, my soul, okay. I do like the music choice here. I think it works really well. And I love how every time we get to a new musical phrase, that's when she changes her positions. Nice little harmony between the music and the visuals. The music is very pretty, I will say. This episode is definitely a lot slower paced than the previous. Walter's one of my favorite characters of all time. Yeah, Walter's pretty good.
趣味。あの父兄が自分で選択したんだ。
ちゃんと飼いならしなさい、アーカード。バーミンガムの17号線沿いで北上しながら一家惨殺を繰り返している輩がいる。首には吸血痕。
I wanted to see what those
襲わ
books
れた
said,
部
but
屋
I
にはご丁寧
res
に神
too
を
low
呪う
res
血
for me
文
to
字。
read it.
犯人
Oh,
は
it's the
複
same
数。
V as Ruijerd. Okay, that's
安い
interesting.
吸血鬼が増えている。
I guess
そうい
there's
っ
our
た分
obligatory
析はお前
Mushoku
の
Tensei
務めじゃな
reference.
い。
じゃあ、明日の夜。
Medical blood. Okay. Okay. I mean, this is an angle I was not surprised to see. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with it, because they seem to be kind of toying with a couple of different directions they could take this character, and this one in particular is the idea of she was, she voluntarily took on the role of vampire to save her life, but she also does not like the idea of being a vampire, and she's kind of rejecting some of the more distasteful elements that come with that, such as needing to drink blood. So again, it's one of those things there. This angle of how she's freaking out about what she needs to do now, and that she's kind of rejecting it. They do kind of need to focus on it, though. They need to really reinforce it. It can't just be this one scene. Because so far, they've been not really doing a whole lot with her discomfort, but again, part of it is her, they're kind of playing around with her role in like her hesitancy as far as, shooting the other vampire went. And now they're kind of playing into the hesitancy towards drinking blood and all that stuff. It's like they kind of have to choose one of those paths to really focus on in order for it to work. And thank you for the follow. I'm sorry, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Okay. Again, another interesting musical choice that's different from anything we've heard so far. But it works because they're, showing these kind of crazy adventurous types of vampires, and and of course leaning into the kind of the lustful element of the occult, where again it's not an uncommon bit of iconography to showcase the excesses of sensation. Essentially, like they're basically doing the Slanesh thing of the violence and the lust and all that stuff kind of coalescing together to be the manic energy that they're presenting. As I've been saying, a lot of what they're doing is very over the top, but I get what it's going for. Yeah. We'll say they're also very messy eaters. I don't know if the vampires have a weakness to napkins.
そろそろこいつらがグールになっちまう。いいよ、関係ない。
Wait, do I actually see trigger discipline?
関係ない。
That trigger discipline! Yes! Finally! Holy shit! Nobody ever has trigger discipline in these anime. Finally, we get somebody with it.
お前も血に酔ってるんだな。あんたは？ 俺もだ。
Although I do wonder where a British vampire is able to get a submachine gun. Okay, I'll say also apparently recoil just does not exist in this universe. Because I gotta say, like, I get they probably have vampire strength as well, but like one-handed in a submachine gun like that, you know, it's not gonna be super easy to control. Yeah, she should be wearing ear protection as well. Although maybe vampires don't have to, I don't know.
こっちを使えルーキー。
こんな重そうなの私。
Try and imitate the Terminator with his machine gun. Yeah,
わかりました。
perhaps, yeah.
これ新型なんですか？樹脂製
33ポンドはあるマガジン未装填でな。
そんなに重いのに。
Okay. I mean, I will say, I get the idea that they're showcasing the fact that vampires have super strength, that she's got a newfound strength that she's not quite familiar with yet. Although the fact that she hasn't realized that she's stronger up to this point is a little bit hard to believe. But again, part of it I can kind of overlook, but they're really making me kind of actively engage my suspension of disbelief rather than just kind of making it flow naturally.
狙う場所が違う。お前が今狙ったのは人間が相手の場合だ。俺たちの相
I'm
手は
also not a fan of her
ここだけを狙う。
dance with that, but
行動部隊ギャリス班出動
yeah,
準備
again, I'm not going to complain too much. Again, part of what makes the vampire strength could also mean that the certain things are not necessary, because a big reason that, for example, when you fire a gun in the real world, especially such a big one like that, you would brace it against your shoulder. The idea is that that helps you control the recoil and keep the thing aimed properly. But they've established that she has super strength because she's a vampire now, so maybe that's not actually necessary for her. I don't know. So I can accept that for what it is, and say maybe her stance, while it was bad in reality, it can be understandable in this context. I will say, I'm not a huge fan of the pacing of this episode. It feels like it's kind of jumping from beat to beat in ways that, like, it doesn't feel like it's flowing particularly well. Like, a lot of the individual things it's doing are fine, but again, I just don't like how it's all coming together. Yeah, it really is feeling like it's just kind of cutting from scene to scene to scene with not even an attempt to like actually transition from one to the
ギャリス班
next.
国道17号を封鎖いたしました。ボニーとクライドの処理は行動開始後120分で完了する予定でございます。
Okay.
自分が何者になったかも分かっていない意識
I also think that might be the first time in any of the anime we've watched for this entire marathon of where we actually saw a character put the safety on for a weapon to when they stopped firing. So that's also, again, I will say, while the gun safety hasn't been perfect in this one, a lot of what I'm doing is more nitpicky than before, because I think it's actually handling it a lot better than anything else we've seen so far.
の低い吸血鬼そんなものは以前にはいなかった
Like, well, it's again, it's
そう
not
でございま
perfect,
した
but
ね。
this one actually seems like they kind of knew what they were doing
いいえ
with the guns.
今はインテグラ様のお世話が私にとって何にも代え難い務めでございます。
I do also like Integra's blue eyes, although, and I know the eye color is probably going to be a pretty big aesthetic thing for it, because, I mean, we already saw it in the first episode of how the big indicator that this girl was a vampire now is the fact that her eye color changed to red to match Alucard's. But I will say the fact that the resolution of this particular recording is so low is actually kind of harming the effect that it's going for there. Because I feel like the colors is probably more striking in the full resolution. Although I will find it also interesting how her eyes are also blue, because as opposed to the red of Leaf's eyes and of course Alucard's and our protagonist, I wonder if that was a deliberate choice. I was like, why do they have her eyes blue? I mean, it does fit the overall character design. Like, the overall color palette works with the blue eyes, but every other vampire we've seen so far has red eyes. And she has been shown to be a vampire. She has the fangs, she's drinking the blood. So I wonder what the actual reasoning for that is.
この気分の良さが永遠に続くんだぜ。すげえよ。
Okay, that was a pretty cool transition.
高速制御術式第5号解放
Seizure warning, I
こんな
guess.
気分を味わわせてくれるなんてあいつらに感謝しなきゃな。なんだよ。
Ooh, that's bright.
どうしたの？ねえレイフ、ここどこ？
知らねえよ。わけわかんねえよ。
And I do like how the
街に入
I will say again, I do like how once they're under Alucard's whatever that is, I do like how the color palette changes, or at least the background color palette changes, so it becomes more red, even before we actually get to this wider shot of where you can actually kind of see the weird trippy effects. Even then it was, you could still see kind of the red in the background to show that things are different now. Again, I really do like the use of color in this anime. That's one thing that I'm consistently enjoying.
くそ、引き殺すやら。
信念も理性もなく霧やコウモリにすら姿を変えることもできない
なんだよ、お前は。
渇きを癒すためではなく女子供を無用に殺し楽しいかえそんなことでお前らの欲望は満たされるのか安く汚れたボニーとクライド
なんなんだよ。
Okay, I think also the fact that he just straight up called them Bonnie and Clyde is like that's obviously the aesthetic they were going for with these two. That's what they were trying to convey. Actually, just directly saying the reference, that kind of bugs me.
そんなクズが不死者になろうだと永遠に生きる吸血鬼だと恥というものを知れ
なんだこいつはよ。
Okay, I gotta say, I have a feeling that Alucard likes getting shot. Like, he's gotta be into it for him to keep letting it happen as much as he is.
私やだ。
Again, finger off the trigger, asshole. Also, I will say, I don't think I've seen them reload those submachine guns a single time. Okay, so I will say that was a cool visual. I really liked the animation there. I loved seeing the submachine gun bullets, just shatter against the handgun bullets that he got, which again makes sense because they've established that it's a very large handgun, all that stuff, and they're using I think they said 13mm rounds. But also, again, the fact that he mentioned that they were explosive in the previous episode. you know, if they hit another bullet midair, that would probably set them off under most circumstances. Like, that's got to be more concussive force on the bullet than the body is. So again, that would have probably gone off. But I guess they also wanted to have the explanation for why the gun leaves such a big hole in people's chests, even though an explosive round probably wouldn't leave like a perfectly circular hole like that. But whatever, there's some rule of cool going on here as well. Yeah, the actual visuals themselves, the animations, the way everything's set up, I do like it, even if some of the surrounding elements are a little silly.
お前にはもう見えているはずだ。
だって500ヤード。嘘、見えてる。
Okay, so
ただの女の子にしか見えない。
okay, so they're also establishing, you know, the idea that she has enhanced senses as on top of her enhanced strength. So because, you know, vampire, that's part of the powers she's obtained, but I still think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that she's using iron sights. Like, it might make I don't know. Maybe she doesn't need a scope, but, you know, if you're distance shooting, no point, like, handicapping yourself. But whatever, I'm not gonna complain.
あれが吸血鬼。
神の皆により不浄なる生けし屍に永久なる鉄槌を打た。エイミ、撃てビクトリア。お前が同類でないことを我々に示せ。
Okay, I was really curious, like confused for a second.
お前のターゲットだ。
Okay, so that is a vampire despite the eye color. I wonder if that's ever going to be explained.
1軍 A はアーカード、B はセラス・ビクトリア巡査長が仕留めました。了解。撤収します。
Okay.
Victoria.
And that provides some nice closure to the stuff they set up early on where she couldn't take the shot in the beginning of the episode, and she finally got to the point where she could take the shot at the end of the episode. I do feel like it kind of, you know, skipped over some stuff to get there, but again, I like how it came full circle. Again, I like a lot of the ideas the show has. I'm not the biggest fan of the execution a lot of the times, but again, at its core, I do like what it's going for. Which, I mean, that's probably a reason that I really liked Hellsing Ultimate, which at some point, I'm probably going to have to, at some point, when I'm done with my marathon, this might be one that I watch to completion and then might rewatch Hellsing Ultimate just to see, because I have a feeling Hellsing Ultimate, based on what I remember, which is not a whole lot, but I have a feeling Hellsing Ultimate kind of fixes a lot of the issues that I had with the original Hellsing, that I'm having, I should say, with the original Hellsing. So that'll be a point of curiosity that, you know, might bug me for a while.
セラス・ビクトリア、名前があります。
お前はすでに太陽の下を歩けない存在になった。血を飲め。飲まなければお前の体は弱っていく。従え、私に。
Okay, and then again, they're kind of doing a little bit more of the idea of how she's kind of
マスター。
reluctantly accepting her role as a vampire. Okay. Yeah, so far, again, I think what I've said from the first episode is holding true as in episode 2 as well, where I like a lot of what it's doing. Some of the execution is not quite there for me, but overall, it's a very enjoyable experience regardless. Although I will say I don't think the pacing of episode 2 was as good as episode 1's, so we'll see how episode 3 holds up in that regard. And again, I like the blue color palette. Every episode has started off on a different color palette, and I think that's pretty neat. Oh, and there's the red eyes. Okay. Yeah, I like the little indicators of Okay, yeah, I will say I'm the more I watch this, the more I'm appreciating the eye color thing, how they're using that as a visual indicator of who is supernatural and who is not. Although the vampire from the last episode, the girl had blue eyes, but whatever, let's just ignore that for now.
なんていうことだ。神よ、さまよえる魂に導きを。永遠に一緒にいたかっただけなのに。
パリ行きユーロスターは現在15分遅れで運行中です。ご利用ありがとうございます。
What?
ご利用あり
I
がと
gotta
うござ
read
いま
that.
す。
Jesus Christ is in heaven. Oh, is this the fucking? Okay, I think this is the guy. I remember him from Ultimate. Yeah, that's him. Okay, he was a fun character. I remember liking him a lot because just how batshit insane he is.
ロンドンへようこそ、神父様。
神のご加護。
Ooh, I like the green eyes.
年齢20歳、男性。死亡時間約72時間前。ただし活動停止
And
は
I love how the
12時間前。
brightness is in contrast to what we've seen in the dark so far. And actually, even in this scene itself, there's a lot of you know the bright of the artificial surgery lights is lighting up a specific part of the room while the rest of the room remains like shrouded in darkness. Not particularly practical as far as the logic of the scene goes, but it works thematically as well, though. And you know, so it's contrasting not only you know the brightness, the you know kind of the artificial nature of the light when the rest of the show is overall very dark. Like, see, even they're standing in darkness.
そこを切って。
パブリックスクールの生徒なんですが、イタリアからの留学生で家は貴族。はあ、解剖は極秘にしなくては。
しつけができてなかっただけ、人の血を吸う人間になってはいけません。あなたは貴族の指定なんですよって。
I don't know.
これよりも
I will say again, we haven't seen a whole lot from her just yet, but I don't know. The morbid humor doesn't seem to quite fit what we've been shown of her so far. At least not the giddy type of morbid humor that she just demonstrated there.
題の
But maybe once we see a little bit more of her, that'll
あった。
maybe it'll fit a little bit better later.
発見した。やはり機能は停止している。
厄介なのはこれの方だ。
近年急増した吸血鬼が何者かの恣意的な関与によるものだとしたら、
王立国境騎士団が取るべき道は変わらない。サーチ&デストロイ。
I will say, I do like how every major character has some sort of striking eye color, where she's got the blue eyes, although you can't see it in this shot in particular. The other priest has the green eyes, and of course the vampires have their red eyes. You know, it's a nice little touch.
の坊やがどこで誰と接触してきたかくらいはそちらで調べてるんでしょうね。
すでに捜査は開始しています。
切開した箇所は縫合してくれ。
はあ、NHB の処理は焼却が義務付けられて。
宗派が違うんだ。
あ？
外国人。遺体は後日ローマから引き取りに来る。
Okay, okay, that's interesting. So it looks like there's you know, a little bit of geopolitics at play as well, where I guess the I mean, they're set in the UK here, so I guess their policy is anything that's, supernatural gets burned, which makes sense. That's another common trope in this particular type of setting. But I guess it's also because hey, he's not a British citizen, so it's not really up to us as to what happens to his body. Because yeah, even there might be practical reasons they burn bodies, but they don't want to cause an international incident. Makes sense.
虫は駆除してあるし問題はない。
はい。
疲れた。
And okay, so
マジシム。
I'm guessing she hasn't had the. Okay, yes. So it seems she's probably being a little weak because of not drinking any blood, and this, it's going to be another kind of psychological test for her where she has to drink blood to survive. She doesn't want to because she's still kind of retaining the human morality that she had grown up with, but also her body's going to kind of be like forcing her into really wanting to drink the blood. So that's, her brain's kind of pulling her in several different directions. I like the music here. And I do find it very interesting that she's... Okay. I actually kind of like the idea of her... Oh, okay, that's interesting. So I guess this is going to be a constant struggle for her. But I do find it interesting that she kind of set up the thing like a meal as like with silverware and all that stuff, as opposed to just kind of raw dogging it.
本来ならお前は人の限界を超えた体力を持ち得ているはずなのに、なんだその面。
分かってはいるっていうか。
Okay, I will say this. I don't think visually they're selling how fatigued she is at the moment. Like, I think there could have been things they do to make her look more visibly unwell. Like, they should probably give her bags under her eyes, just make her maybe look a little bit more gaunt than she does. So, again, I think there should be visual things to kind of accompany the things they're telling us. Because at the moment, the only thing they're really doing to alter her appearance is the... like, almost looks like the eyeliner, which, yeah. I mean, the shading is a little bit different as well. But... And also the way she's walking is doing a good job selling that, but still, I think there's some visual indicators they could have had to really sell the idea of how she's becoming weak due to her lack of blood. Interesting choice of voice actor. Yeah, I remember his voice having a completely different timbre in Ultimate, but I could just be misremembering.
Kyuketsuki アーカード。
いつの時代にだってちんけなまがい者はいるもんだ。
それは本物の誇りが言わせていると。しかし、このヘルシング家が代々戦の相手としてきたものどもとは。
I have to agree, Alan, because I mean, ultimately, I mean, from what we've seen so far, the delivery is not terrible. Like, I think the voice actor is actually doing a decent job. It's just the voice itself doesn't quite fit.
間に一体どれほどの差がある?
Okay, again, it's having a lot of the pacing issues that I've saw with the previous episode, where it's just kind of jumping from scene to scene, shot to shot, without really actually properly transitioning. Like, this honestly feels almost more like a storyboard than a fully finished episode. All right, have a good night, Alan.
わかった。通しなさい。 どうぞ。
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I agree. It is good to be back.
僕は君と永遠に一緒にいたいだけなんだ。分かってくれたんだよね。答えてよミック。ねえ、見えないよミック。どこにいるんだい？
Really interesting music choice. Really does kind of
どこ？
really does a good job of amplifying the kind of surrealist feel as it kind of slowly transitions into a more, you know, horror aesthetic. Okay. And it's definitely leaning a little bit more into the idea of how the supernatural stuff and being a vampire or whatever actually kind of can overtake your more logical facilities where... And also it's not uncommon for classical vampire stuff stories to include, you know, elements of obsession as well. So that really fits into what they're doing. And the flashing red light, I like that a lot. It really does provide a cool visual to this scene.
法王朝特務局第13課イスカリオテ機関だと。
Okay, and I will say that line right there definitely is one of those lines that's very much delivered for the sake of the audience and not because it actually makes sense in universe. Not that big a deal, but I feel like there's better ways for them to have revealed that little piece of information. Okay, and also just visually, I like the way that I mean, obviously they're doing the photo to do more emotional stuff with her and showing what she lost in multiple senses of the word. The fact that she's no longer human, the fact that all those people are dead, all that fun stuff. But and that her old life is gone, all that. But I also do like just the way they're having her sit on the ground, kind of curled up like that. And again, it's more good emotional stuff to showcase kind of how she's still kind of freaking out and scared of all the things that are happening to her.
現在ロンドン市警察が地下を封じていますが、犠牲となった警官がグール化するのも時間の問題です。
チップを抜いても一度汚染されたら人間には戻れるはずがない。愚か者ぞろいだ。
ヘルシング機関 A 中隊、武装 C3 でこれより現場に向かいます。
神と女王陛下のご加護、エイメン。
エイメン。Go! Go! Go!
I will say, as much as it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I still do like the fact that her uniform is different from the rest of the group because, I don't know, just visually, it tickles me in the right places.
吸血鬼は今のところただ一人では。
同じ言葉は二度言わない。ウォルター。ここはプロテスタントの国。バチカンに勝手な真似はさせない。
Yeah, and I will say that's also a funny little thing because, I mean, I know that the Catholic and Protestant thing has historically been like a big deal, but I mean, it's not as big a deal nowadays as it used to be, but you know, it's funny to see them kind of take that little bit of historic conflict and, you know, apply it there. And actually, the fact that it takes place in the UK makes a whole lot of sense because, you know, the Henry VIII kind of established the Church of England, which was a big, not like the Protestant church, but was like a big reason for England shifting away from Catholicism into Protestantism was because of, you know, Henry's disputes with the Vatican. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. Okay, and I definitely do like the idea that they're kind of highlighting that this guy, this antagonist, had fundamentally good intents, presumably, because it seems like he was trying to save his friend, but now he's kind of gone insane with the whatever bloodlust has hit him as a result of his transformation or whatever's going on. So yeah, reasonably effective, if a little heavy-handed.
お前はここで待機。シフト B7 先行突入。
私だって
ノートノートまさか
Okay. I'm guessing that's probably... Yeah, there was probably a commercial break there, but... Okay. I don't know. I feel like there was... That yell right there was almost screaming for some music to accompany it, but it just didn't happen, and that kind of, made me feel a little weird, but not in a good way.
やられたか。
ギャリス班長、
来るのか。
あの人が探してる人、ミックって。
とっくに死体は焼かれた。
不敬。狙うなら確実に心臓か頭をぶち抜け。
マスター。
Okay, so I will say that also the fact that he's talking about shooting through the head. Oh, they're talking about ghouls. Never mind. So that's different.
とて好き好んでグールになったわけではない。一度こうなってしまった人間を元に戻す方法はないのだ。速やかにぶち殺してやるのが奴らへの救い。戸惑うな。
Yes, sir.
So I will say she doesn't seem sick like she was earlier. I mean, again, there weren't really a whole lot of visual indicators then either, but I'm wondering, did she drink blood since then? Because that was like a whole thing. So either they did have her drink blood and she's gotten better, or they kind of forgot that she was supposed to be under the weather. Neither one is particularly hopeful for me.
Master!
Okay, I do like the calming music on top of the violence. That's always been an aesthetic trope that I've enjoyed. Okay, I do like how it's just like slightly off tone. Okay, huh. I will say there haven't been a lot of times when this says where I've been surprised, but that definitely surprised me. Okay, I also do like the negatives to highlight the confrontation here. And then, of course, as soon as the priest guy shows up and the organ music starts playing. And yeah, like we were talking about earlier, such a cool scene, but this, while I do think this voice actor is doing a good job in his delivery, the voice just does not fit the character, and I do feel that kind of undermines a lot of the impact that this scene is going for. And, and it sucks, because, I mean, again, I do think the voice actor is giving a good performance, but a big part of it is not just how good the voice actor is, it's whether the voice actually fits the character and the scene. And in this case, I don't think it does.
我は神の代理人。我は神罰の代行者。何？
Okay. Again, still these visuals of the vampires just kind of going into dust was always, it's consistently entertaining.
喋るな、フケ。お前の体は弱っている。
お前か。
ヘルシング家に代々飼われてきた化け物はイスカリオテ機関。そうか。貴様らのような化け物をヘルシング家など遥か及ばぬ古き時から戒めてきたのだよ。
I will also say I've always enjoyed when I watched Hellsing Ultimate. I definitely enjoyed the kind of three-way conflict dynamic going on where both of these groups are fighting against the evil vampires and all those other associated creatures, but also they're fighting against each other. Adds a lot of, you know, a constant source of tension to the overall dynamic, and I think it was, in Ultimate at least, it was done reasonably well. We'll see how it does, at least for the rest of this episode. I have a feeling it's not going to get developed a whole lot, but...
浄化したのさ。薄汚い化け物が陳腐な実を使えないように。我らが使命は我らが神に逆らう愚者をその肉の一辺までも絶。
I will say I also do like how the writing on the back of the priest's glove kind of is meant to kind of be a direct parallel or direct reflection of the occult symbols that are on the back of Alucard's glove. You know, doing a little bit of visual parallels between these two because they're clearly meant to be reflections of one another.
滅させること。人間の分際で身の程知らずか。
Good music as well. I like it. Like the fact that there's like nothing really happening right now. They're just kind of standing and staring at each other and not moving. But the combination of the, you know, the fun music and the camera pans and changing camera angles, you know, it works.
Hey. 吸血鬼用の玉で地獄に落ちろ、神父様。
マスター。
嫌なもんに切られちまったな。こいつにやられると厄介なんだ。我々でも。
Yep. Visually, again, another great scene. Looks really cool. It makes no fucking sense, but who cares? Real cool.
再生者リジエネーターだったのか。目には目を。貴様ら化け物と戦うために神の御業と人が作り出した技術だ。
I know. And something about it's just really funny how he basically is fighting with like just ballistic swords. It's great.
ない哀れな出来損ない破滅させてやろう。お前の神の代わりに。いくらリジエネーターとて同じところに銀の玉を何発もぶち込まれたら持ちはしまい。命乞いでもしてろ、クソ野郎。人の作った武器で戦うふぬけ吸血鬼が。
Another great musical choice.
Paladin, Alexander Andersen.
神の代行を止められる者はこの国にはいない。
大概にしなさい。あなたのミッションはすでにエンリコ・スティバレッティの意外消滅によって履行不可能となっている。
吸血鬼の討伐は常に我らの使命。
ただでさえ越権であるのに、そこまでのことをしてただで済む
I
と
do
思うのか。
remember really liking the, you know, complex political nuances of you know, how the Vatican is
直ちに
kind
バ
of
チカン
dueling
に
with the
戻れと
Hellsing
書いてあるはずだ。
organization.
女王陛下の恩情に感謝しろ。
Although I will also say that part of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense just because I feel like in this setting with, the Vatican having its own kind of vampire hunting organization, I feel like knowing kind of the conflict they're having with the Hellsing organization, that, I don't know, having him go in and kill the Hellsing vampires, it just seems like that's something they would tell him to kind of avoid just because it could spark more issues between the two than are like it feels like it could start a war basically, which granted, I get that I get the impression that the Vatican is not necessarily the most level-headed in this setting, and that they're kind of going with the old school Spanish Inquisition zealotry angle, but yeah, again, I'm gonna kind of have to go lean into the suspension of disbelief to say, yeah, rule of cool, that's how things are going. So I'm not gonna question it. I mean, more than I already did, of
お目に
course.
かかる時が来るでしょう。さあ、インテグラル・ウィンゲーツ・ヘルシング。
I like the warm glow of this scene. It's pretty neat.
リジエネーターに負けるような吸血鬼はヘルシング家には不要だ。アカド。自分の班長すら守れない半人前の吸血鬼も我が機関には不要。
すみません。
And I like the changing color palette again. Yeah, as much as I do think the pacing of these episodes is not the best, I do like how they're willing to linger on certain moments.
アーカード。
吹け、私の血を飲め。そうすれば、お前は刺激されるための吸血鬼ではなくなる。本当の意味で我々の一族になるのだ。
マスターじゃなくなっちゃう。
I will say that, again, this is a moment that I really like. I like what they're doing here. I like the ideas. I like the way these two are interacting. I like the musical setting behind it, and I like the visual framing of this scene is beautiful. But it just, this moment feels unearned. I don't feel like they've gotten to this point yet. I don't feel like they've advanced Saras's character enough to the point where she feels like she's ready to actually take this step into independence.
血液を食らい、自分の力で夜を歩くノーライフキングに。私の血を飲め、セラス・ビクトリア。
Visually, again, that's really cool, but yeah, this moment just doesn't feel earned yet. Okay, so even though it seems like they're not going to actually go through with it, so my opinion slightly changes. So I guess, I thought they were leaning towards that she was actually going to do it, but even so, him offering it still doesn't feel particularly earned. So, I am maintaining what I was saying earlier, but...
わかんないんです。でも、なんか、今は。
Yeah, it just does. It overall just feels like a good moment that has not been earned. Yeah, okay, so overall, I think a lot of my opinions have been pretty consistent throughout this viewing, is that there's a lot of stuff in it that I do really like. I think it's doing a lot of cool things. I think it's, visually it's a stunning show, of course. I think, again, it just, the ideas are great. The execution's not quite there. I do vaguely remember watching Hellsing Ultimate. I think I remember liking it a lot more than I did this, but yeah, as I always say, my final opinions are going to kind of be solidified when I actually do the script. So that whatever I say here could definitely change as I take the time to really consolidate my thoughts and really just get my opinions in order. But so there's a lot of good with this show. That's also a lot holding it back. Honestly, I think Hellsing, as much as I do enjoy it, and as much as it really is like a stunning show in many ways, I think it probably gets a B tier. That would be my guess. Of course, my opinion could change once I actually get to working on the script, but as a preliminary opinion, I think B tier is probably about where it goes. If I'm remembering correctly, Hellsing Ultimate probably would have been an A tier if I was actually ranking that, but I'm not, so that's what it is. So I do appreciate everybody for showing up. That's going to be it for today. Tomorrow, if you want to come back, is 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to actually be starting to watch stuff on my own time as well, just because I can get through it a lot faster. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to get done tonight, so I can't say what we're gonna watch tomorrow, but tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to continue the marathon, depending on how much I end up watching tonight after the stream. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to guess what we're going to be watching tomorrow, but we're going to be watching something. Hope everybody had a good time. I certainly did. I hope to see you tomorrow. Again, we're in the 2000s. We're getting closer to the end of the marathon, and at that point, I'll be able to start really just going hard in on the script, and because I want to get this fucking video done already. But it's been attached to my soul for long enough now. But yeah, my hope is to get this video done by early December. That may or may not come to fruition, but that's the goal. So yeah, thanks for showing up, everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. If not, I'll still be doing it every day except Wednesday. And on Saturday, we'll be doing 12 p.m. And on Sunday, we'll be back 9 a.m. doing more Mushoku Tensei light novel. So again, thanks for stopping by. See you later.